Ben Meiselas, joined by Harry Litman of Talking Feds, the Talking Feds podcast, the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to both. They're partnered with the MeidasTouch network. Harry, got to talk
Ben,
about this $83.3
yeah.
million defamation verdict against Donald Trump in the E Jean Carroll defamation case. We've covered this from some different angles. I want to talk about what happens next now if you're E Jean Carroll. Then we can talk a little bit about what happens next. I wouldn't wish this upon an enemy if you're Donald Trump and what you do
Oh,
there.
come on. You've got a little bit of jubilation there.
But
So look, the two things are intertwined because what's happened to date. I mean, even at this trial, he's gone on the courthouse steps and said to his political supporters, "It's all a lie. I don't know her," et cetera, et cetera. And man, he's been socked. I mean, the lesson overall is, defame me once, 5 million, defame me twice, 80 million. And I don't think we'll be seeing him. It'll be very interesting to defame her 3 times. But even this, this is basically a real verdict. He's got, if he wants to appeal it, he's got to pony up the money in a bond. It is, as we talked about in some other hot takes, it's basically, even though it seems eye-popping, a lot of millions of dollars, it's kind of in the sweet spot of the range that courts of appeals will endorse. So it seems to me that, I mean, we'll see. Is he at the end of his, cottage industry of defaming E Jean Carroll? From her point of view, I mean, I don't know. I think she has really been vindicated. It's not just the money, but she walked out of court today, as a victim and a woman with dignity, which so often hasn't happened in the system. I think she kind of gives, a buoyed sense to women who've been in that position, who known others who have been. She's 80 years old. I don't think she would relish going at it again, especially given the verdict she's going to receive. If he's inane enough to keep on with it, maybe. But my guess is at least that part of the Donald Trump legal parade of horribles, that is the E Jean Carroll defamation franchise, I think is probably at an end, save only, of course, the very, very important business of having this sustained on appeal. And to me, it looks like it was pretty clean. It looks like Roberta Kaplan, her lawyer, didn't, go overboard. It looked like Judge Kaplan was tough, but, understandably so. And the bottom line amount, I think it's going to hold up.
Harry, well, E Jean Carroll certainly has, I think it's undisputed, if she wants to, a massive defamation case against Donald Trump again, where once again liability would be stipulated. Donald Trump would be found liable for punitive damages. So it would just be a trial on the number based on all of the defamatory statements Donald Trump has made while this trial has been taking place. Because for purposes of this trial, the new defamatory statements actually did inform the underlying basis for compensatory. They were used, this was such a strategic, brilliant move by Roberta Kaplan. They were used, of course, to show what the potential punitive damages could be, that he's going to keep on doing this. Look at him ratify his conduct that he previously did in 2019. But what E Jean Carroll's lawyer didn't do, because it would have delayed this trial, is bring an entirely new case or amend the case to add all of the new stuff that Donald Trump did, starting with that so-called CNN town hall. So question number one, Harry, she does have a case. Does she bring it? But question number two, do you think she does what we saw Shay Moss do and Ruby Freeman do in the Giuliani case, where Giuliani kept defaming them afterwards? So they then brought an action not only for damages, but for injunctive relief. And do you think that E Jean Carroll, it would go before the same judge? You then have some sort of restraining order, could be a temporary restraining or a first, then some order, protective order, final injunctive order, precluding Donald Trump from continuing to defame his rape victim, punishable by incarceration if he violates it.
Yep.
What do you think about that strategy? Do you think they go in that direction?
Well, remember what Moss and Freeman did? They didn't really bring a separate action, but he continued to Giuliani and, talk about an imponderable psyche and what the hell happened to him. But he continued to do it, and they went to the judge while the judge still had it under jurisdiction. It would really be the equivalent of Trump doing it tomorrow, and they're going to Kaplan. That is, or E. Jean Carroll going to Kaplan. So it'll first depend whether Trump would be so foolish, and I think if then E. Jean Carroll could go to Kaplan, so it'd be a whole different thing. As I was suggesting, would she then in addition go through the ordeal? And it is an ordeal of suing him again. My best guess, though, and this is what's kind of monumental about today, is that she has shut him up. We'll see, right? It's very hard to shut up Donald Trump, but I think we're not going to be seeing him continue to defame her. But while Kaplan has jurisdiction for 30 days or whatever, if he does do it, he can get. It's certainly true that she can go to him. He was ready, was Kaplan, to throw Haba in jail. I think he would have no trouble saying, I'm ordering you not to, Trump, under pain of contempt. That means the pokey. But I really think we've crossed a line, and we'll see. It's people who have bet on Trump to behave have always lost their money. But man, he's lost his money today, and I think he's going to rail against Biden, rail against Smith, rail against Kaplan, but not rail against E. Jean Carroll. So he won't give the opening for the kind of move that Moss and Freeman made in Georgia.
I'm reminded of that moment before the January 6th insurrection where the top acting Department of Justice officials showed up and basically said to Trump, if you appoint this Jeff Clark MAGA extremist as Attorney General, we are all going to humiliate you. Yeah. And they stood up with force and power, and they were in the Oval Office, and they yelled at him, and they shut him up, and they put him in his place. And we've seen that when people act that way, the same way we saw Judge Kaplan act, and frankly, the way I hope we were all raised to act sometimes when having to deal with bullies,
right?
Donald Trump does back down a lot. And if you provide that force and he's scared and he goes into self-preservation mode, his kind of malignant narcissism and survival mode is to try to throw people under the bus, but then he kind of scurries away kind of like a rat. And that's something that we see over and over again. So in many ways, to your point, yes, $83.3 million is a real verdict. We know from Donald Trump's list of liquid assets that actually represents a significant portion of liquid assets in a way that is going to hurt him. But in many ways, the broader message, you said it before, it kind of pierced this veneer of power that was really just this projection, but this whiny nonsense. He's a loser in a way that hasn't been demonstrated before ever yet throughout his disgraceful, whatever you want to call it, with this country. Harry, what do you think?
Look, I'll go with your point as really the bigger one here. It can be done. He is not a superhuman. And why it's so important is, it's anybody's guess, and we've done it for years, but maybe that path lies madness. But it does seem to me like a big part of the support he continues to enjoy is because of this almost like, adolescent fantasy that, Donald Trump can do whatever. He doesn't have to do stuff like I do. And he gets away with it. And the get away with it part really was stripped from him today. There are other aspects that he'll be put to the test, including legal ones. And you mentioned Engoron, man, he's going to get shellacked next week in that guy's, he's really taking it big time on the chin. Remember when Mike Tyson comes in against Buster Douglas, no way he can lose. And all of a sudden, in fact, he's a human being. Trump is a human being, and so much of his, I think, popularity and the plausibility that we're looking at of his becoming, of all things, president again, notwithstanding what he says he would do with that power, has to do with this, illusion that I think was, look, we won't say smothered, pierced, put to rest forever today, but it certainly took a big hit. And, we'll see what it means. Not just, the most extreme zealots, they'll stick with him, but that 7 or 8% of persuadables, which really the whole election turns on, that if he's not Donald Trump the Invincible anymore, he certainly doesn't, a lot of his appeal, I think, goes away.
He said Mike Tyson, he said that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Right, exactly.
And frankly, I'm not sure Donald Trump, though, even had a plan using that description right there. I mean, if Trump's plan was to have Alina Habba, a very inexperienced, kind of horrible and also delusional kind of person there, it's one thing to not be good, but to think you're outsmarting federal Judge Kaplan, and to think, as she said, that if you're pretty, you could fake being smart and then, go there with that kind of false confidence and just get, completely schooled by the legal system and basic rules of evidence. I mean, it just kind of shows further that Trump's just there's a basic level of incompetence, dealing with incompetent people. And so this was a microcosm or a macrocosm, whatever you want to say, of a lot of the systemic kind of horrific issues when it comes to Trump and MAGA. And you could apply this to other areas, whether it's him attacking Dr. Fauci, whether it's him trying to attack military leaders and describe our military systems in terms of, it's like a ding dong, swoosh, swoosh. And I'm just like, all right, we just have to reflect that this is like an idiot. Like, this isn't we're dealing with an idiot. Anyway, I'll save that for my political rants. Any final words, Harry, before we go?
Look, I think it's a really good point. First of all, Habba strikes me as a perfect Trumpian figure. And what we're finding out is there's a real world where law applies and jurors apply it. And where, not just lying, she was incompetent and she was dishonest, but more, she was like inept and unlikable. And that, so what Trump really confronted this week were, people's judgment about what is right and true and decent. And, he justifiably got clobbered for it. And hopefully that's a broader political point as well.
Thank you, Harry Litman. Everybody, make sure you subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Do that right now. Harry puts out a bunch of hot takes every single day. So if you like the stuff we do here, we partner with Talking Feds on YouTube. So check out their YouTube channel. They're on their way to 250,000 subscribers. So help them get there.
It's a mere spit in the ocean in the Meidas world, but we're happy with it. And thanks for your help with it, by the way. Well, and everyone who listens, thanks for.
We all grow together. We all bring our team up together. So everybody, make sure you subscribe to Talking Feds. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. Hit subscribe here. We're on our way to 3 million subscribers. We all got to start. Everybody, thanks for watching, and go check out Talking Feds.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.